Hi, I'm Chris Burdick, CPA, creator of EasyBooks by Chris. And thank you for purchasing the EasyBooks by Chris Small Business Bookkeeping and Tax Workbook. I created this for small businesses and freelancers to help bookkeeping and simplify tax season. Let's get started.
Okay, welcome to EasyBooks by Chris Invoice. This is the full walkthrough end to end. I'm going to do my best to keep this to a limited time. I think I get a little wordy on some of these videos, and this is definitely a longer file. So I'm going to try to speed this up as much as possible. So let's don't waste any time. Let's get started. So, as with all of my files, I have the first place you should always start is the Start Here tab down at the bottom. And it's basically a quick start guide. It'll get you, without watching the videos, it'll walk you through what you want to do to make this file work best for you and your business. Um, there's a workbook overview here, with each one of the tabs and the purpose behind them, and just some notes that I put out here just to I thought would be helpful. And like in other uh, files that I have out there, I have a need help tab. Um, so the videos will be a good start, but if you need specific help, please reach out to me at this Chris Burdick CPA at gmail.com, and or at the Etsy shop is fine too, and I'll be happy to look at your case individually. Um, so start here. The first thing this thing tells us to do is to update the settings, and in other workbooks that have this same format, essentially, you want to start with the settings and specialize it to your business. So I'm gonna, you can see here, these are the required fields, and I'm going to limit it to filling out just these, just for, um, time purposes. And I'm going to do everything as Easy Books by Chris. But you can see these headers and all of these tabs are driven by this business name in the settings. Um, Default payment terms. This is um, basically, net 30, whatever your company default is, and that'll give you, on certain things such as the invoice builder, uh, if there's no uh, payment terms specific to the customer, then it'll just default to whatever you put here. The invoice prefix, I'm going to put INV. I could easily do, easy books, something like that. This will show up essentially on all of your invoices as the prefix uh, to your invoice numbers. So, and it'll be customer facing. So you want to make sure that that's something that you put a little bit of thought into. Um, so starting invoice number 2, this will be what number you start at. It will count from there up. So essentially, if you start here with 1,000, this will give you like 10,000 invoices. If you feel like you need more than that, you can go like that. That'll give you 900,000, a million invoices. So, um, whatever your preference is, whatever you think your business needs. I'm going to start it here for the sake of the video. Default sales tax. This is generally what your state sales tax is. Where I am at, it is 7.25%. So I'm going to put that currency symbol. I'll put this in just for the sake, because I'm here. But that should be enough. I would probably fill out the rest of this if I was you. Take a little bit more time, but for the sake of the video, this is all I'm going to do. So once your settings tab is complete, we move on to customers. All right, so this is where you would fill out all of the customers that you're going to invoice, and you can do it one at a time. Doesn't matter. Doesn't mean if you know. Doesn't matter if you have one customer or 500. This spreadsheet can handle that. So for the sake of the video, I'm just going to do one customer, or I'll do two customers just to show you some of the functionality of the file. So Cars Inc. we'll call Lightning McQueen. It's the contact. And again, you don't have to put email and phone here. I'm going to. Cars@gmail.com. 999 999 9998. All right, and then so payment terms again. If we defaulted and left this out, it would default to the net 30. But we're going to put for cars, we like to get their money immediately. Put that due up front. Active is I put this in here just so for people who have a lot of customers and maybe they have a lot of customers who have been used once and then they're never used again. You could make them inactive essentially, so they wouldn't show up in the drop downs. And I'll just show you, like, we're gonna make this guy active, but just to show you what happens if you hit no, it grays this out, and then any other customer drop down box on the file, this customer will now not show up. But for the sake of the video, let's go back to yes, and it'll show up here. So they are now an active customer. I'm going to do another one really quick. Coffee mugs. Coffee mug. I'm not very creative when it comes to this. I'm more of a spreadsheet guy, as you can imagine. Coffee@gmail.com, and then we'll copy this down, but we'll change that to 9. This one we will make net 30, and we will call this yes. Okay, Okay, so now we have our two customers. So let's move over to the invoice builder. Okay, so invoice builder, I have a pretty thorough video on this, which shows you how to create an invoice and manage it, get it onto the invoice register and the printable invoice tabs. So I'm going to move through this semi-quickly just to show you some of the functionality of this spreadsheet. So when you first see this invoice number here will default to whatever the next invoice number is that needs to be created. And how we do that, that'll be dictated by the invoice register. I'll show you how we get the data we enter here into the invoice register, in which will update this. So let's get started on one. So the first thing you need to attack is just the customer information. So you'll see here all these gray cells, these are the user fields, user tabs. So this is where you will make edits. Everything else is formula driven. So let's go here to customer. This drop down list will give you all of your customers that you have on the customers tab. Right now we only have 2, so let's go with Cars Inc. and it'll populate what the customer ID is, the contact name, email, phone, invoice information. Invoice date always defaults to the current date. The payment terms are dictated based on what you put on your customers tab, and the due date will be affected by what the payment terms are. So if we chose coffee mugs, for instance, you'll see still today's date for the invoice date. Payment terms are net 30, so the due date isn't due until 8/21. But since we're doing cars, it's due upon receipt, so it's 7/22. So let's go with the invoice details. Okay, so this is where this is just a free text field, so you'll just type in whatever service or good you sold. I'm gonna just do this all accounting based, bookkeeping monthly, for instance, tax prep, and then maybe payroll. Okay, so bookkeeping monthly, we're invoicing for 3 months. Tax prep, just one. Payroll, we ran 3 payrolls. The rate for bookkeeping, call it $200 a month. Tax prep, 1,000, and payroll, $100 per payroll, right? And you'll see over here, this is where your subtotals are formulating. This tab here, taxable, this is a question, is this taxable? So there'll be a drop down box, yes or no. Bookkeeping, we do tax, and you'll see this is still the subtotal, but the sales tax will formulate down here. We won't tax for tax prep. Payroll, we will tax. So then you'll see it formulate down there. Okay, and the last thing you want to do is your customer notes, which is pretty self-explanatory. Put something, thank you for your business. So now we have all of the user fields done. This invoice is essentially done. We are going to go down here, save the invoice to the register, right? And this is probably the most important part of this entire file. If you do this wrong, it can mess up everything. So, but it's pretty easy. Just follow the blue boxes. So you want to start here, right underneath the copy start, select all the way through copy end, and then Control C or right click copy. Go over here to the invoice register. Right now it's blank. You want to go here, and this is very important. You want to right click, paste values. If you don't do that, if you don't do the paste values, it will copy over the formulas and it will not formulate this correctly. So you want to make sure that's the case. If you ever do accidentally paste non-paste value, reach out to me and I'll walk you through how we correct that. But you can see once you right click and paste value, see the invoice data populates over here. The paid, we'll hit that when we hit the payment log. But you can see the status is open. And again, I'll show you what happens when, like tomorrow, it will say overdue here because it'll be past the due date and it's still got a balance. So I'm going to run you through that one more time, especially just to show you how we would clear and start a new invoice. You can see this here is already on invoice 2. That's because there's been an invoice 1 used over here. So what we want to do, highlight all of the gray cells in which you used, clear those out, start from scratch. So let's go with coffee mugs. This time you can see everything formulates. We'll call this bookkeeping again and tax prep. 1 and 1, 200, 1,000. We will tax for this. Again, thanks for being a good customer. And that's done. Oops, sorry, we gotta choose no for tax prep there. So now same thing down here, you'll see it's invoice 2 now. We want to select all of these, copy, go over to the invoice register, right click, paste value. Populates here. So the reason this is so important is because basically where you want to, all of your customer user facing is going to be done here on the printable invoice. All the printable invoice gets its data from the invoice tab, or the invoice register, excuse me. So let's go over to the printable invoice. You can see it basically looks exactly the same as the invoice builder. It's just already been formulated. It's, you know, and it's just an easy print and go, essentially. There's really nothing you can do on this tab as far as editing goes. I'll show you one thing you can do, but the only thing you really need to do on this tab, once you've gotten to this point where you've built the invoice and it's on the invoice register, you can basically see it in this form. If you go over here, there's a drop down. It'll give you all the available invoices. So let's go to invoice 2. You can see when you click on that, fills everything in, and you can just print or save to a PDF and send it off. So I did want to show you these. You can see how much space is here, right? This thing is designed to handle 13 line items on the description. If you click this 7 here, these are automatic groupings of the rows. The 7 gives you all of those. If you want to make this smaller, want to reduce the space, which I kind of am funny about because I like things to look a little bit better, you can click on one of these other ones, right? And it'll decrease. You can see I clicked on 3, click on 2, it makes it even more compact. So then you can just Control P or File Print, and you can see there's your invoice. So you print this off or save it to a PDF and you can send it off to your customer. Pretty easy. All right, so payment log. All right, so this is where we get to the point where we start receiving payments for some of these invoices, right? So I'm just going to do an example, and we'll maybe a couple examples of payments, and I'll show you what it looks like both on the EasyBooks Export and the dashboard. So we're going to do payment date of, we'll do yesterday for this first one. Okay, so we can't do that. It's going to error out because it's before. So now this is a manual input. This is manual input as well, but it gives you a drop-down box of all the invoices that you have available. This will be whatever. If you receive a payment for invoice 1 or invoice 2, you would choose those, right? So when you choose invoice 1, customer automatically fills out. These yellows are the ones that you have to fill out, essentially. Payment amount, let's go with $1,000 on invoice 1. Payment method, we'll say they sent it to me via Venmo, right? Invoice 101, payment. Okay, so this exported, and I'll come back to this, but this controls what comes over here to this EasyBooks Export. But we'll come back to that. So payment amount, $1,000. Once it's in here, it knows what invoice it's going to. You can click back on the invoice register and you can see there's been $1,000 applied to this first invoice. Now there's still a balance. So as a result, this says partially paid. If they had paid the amount in full, this would say paid. And obviously. So, and then it'll also say, it'll give you the date, the last time they made a payment. If they make a bunch of different payments, this will give you the last one, the most recent payment. So let's do one more. Again, we'll do this here. We will choose that. Let's go back. 121450. 121450. This is, they gave me cash. And then okay, so now you come back over to the invoice register. It says paid because the balance is 0 here. They paid their entire invoice. So those people are good. Coffee mugs is good. They owe us nothing. So now that brings us to the export. Now I'm designing all of these files to feed off each other and basically end up into the bookkeeping, the EasyBooks bookkeeping spreadsheet. And so all of these payments, once they hit this, will populate over here in the EasyBooks Export as sales revenue. And you can see the 2 payments that we've received, the description here, they are income. They will be once you move them over to the spreadsheet. Sales revenue and the amount, right? So all you have to do, copy this in to the EasyBooks bookkeeping spreadsheet. Once you do that, you don't want to duplicate this, right? You don't ever want to duplicate this in the bookkeeping spreadsheet. So a way to do that is once you copy this over, go back over to the payment log, exported. Yes, this has been exported. And then you see, once it says yes, that removes that payment from the EasyBooks export. So then we'll yes here, and you can see this is blank. So it doesn't get rid of the payments, but it does make it so you won't accidentally import this in twice into your bookkeeping spreadsheet. That's a very nice functionality to have, honestly. And then you can take these data and compare it against your expenses, see what your net revenue is, what your net profit is, and use that spreadsheet to analyze your business. So there's one more tab, and again, the reason that we like to keep not delete out any of these payments once they've been recorded is so we can have it so it can feed into our invoice dashboard that you can look at. So your outstanding receivables is the 965, right? Because that's your total balance here. And then it'll give you your overdue balance if you had an overdue balance. There's only one unpaid invoice, how much cash you've collected this month, the average days to collect on these invoices, collection rate just gives you a percentage. And then this is your accounts receivable aging, where eventually if you had some 90+ day overdue, probably have to write those guys off, but you can see exactly how many, what the balance is in each of those buckets. Invoice status just gives you paid, partially paid, open, and overdue. And then monthly cash collections. This would just give you, a yearly look at your cash collections. This is a very interesting feature that I really liked adding in. Basically, what this will do, and this works better if you have a lot of invoices, unpaid invoices in here, but this will give you your highest, basically your top 5 highest amount outstanding invoices. And since there's only one outstanding invoice right now, the balance is 965, but all these aren't populating correctly. So yeah, so once there's more in there, in fact, let me copy this in here just to give you an idea. What it'll look like. Can't do that. They don't have those customers in there. I'll cut that out. But anyway, that is it. That is end to end how you would create a customer, set your settings, create a customer, build an invoice, add it to your invoice register, add it, print it out so you can send it to customers, add the payments once received, export it over to your bookkeeping software, and then also analyze your accounts receivable essentially on the accounts receivable dashboard. So again, thank you for your purchase and thank you for watching. And I hope this helps. If you have specific problems and these videos don't help you, I will happily help you your specific individual problem. Just reach out to me via my email or via the Etsy shop. Like and subscribe this video. And thank you very much. I'll see you next time. Bye.